All right, I got recording started. So welcome everybody. Thanks for getting on today. I wanted to set up this Zoom, just some presentation on federal orders and answer any questions anybody has. So we are recording this, so hopefully we'll have it available if anybody wants to watch it later. Today, Harold Friedley is going to be the presenter today. Did I say that right? Friedley?
Yes, Friedley. Yeah. Yeah.
So he's going to just give an overview of Federal Order 5, the Appalachian Milk Marketing Order. Let's see, there's his contact information, and that's just off the website. And this website is a great resource for any federal order stuff. So feel free to go to that at any point in time, and you can look up a lot of stuff. And this one here, you can see the map now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just the map of the Appalachian Milk Marketing Order. So this is Federal Order 5. Again, this is just off their website. So there's a lot of good information on that website. So if you have questions, put them in the chat box. I'll try and keep that monitored and ask them as we're going along if we need to. And we got a small enough group today. I think we should probably be able to open it up for anybody to ask some questions if you want to do it that way rather than going in the chat box. So I'm going to quit sharing my screen, and Harold, you should be able to share yours.
Want me to do that now?
Yeah, go ahead.
And tell me what you see here.
All right, I see the PowerPoint there. Now I see it.
You see it now? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Be good.
Okay. What I've been asked to do is to prepare an overview of the Federal Milk Market Order system. Okay. But before I get into that, I thought it'd be interesting to know about Virginia, the way I look at it anyway, from a federal order perspective. For this is the state of Virginia with 385 producers. They're located in Virginia that pooled milk on Federal Order 5 in October of 2020. So I'm not real sure exactly how many total producers there are in Virginia right now. Crafton would know that, I guess. But this is where I see the producers being pooled on Federal Order 5 and where they're located. As I go back and I look at it, I just went back a couple of years, and you can see that in 2018, we had 461 producers pooled on the Appalachian market on average, and in 2019, 407. And currently about 389. And when I look at that on an annual basis, it was surprising to me that it was so much that the Virginia producers decreased almost 12% from 2019 over to 2018 compared to 2018. And as I look at 2020, that's 5% decrease over 2019. So, and that is pretty substantial if I say so on that one. When I look at the production part of that, on those same producers, same 2 years, you see that we average about now 117 million pounds of milk being pooled on the market for 2020. And when you want to compare, 2019 to 2018, 2019, we decreased 12% and almost 2% from 2020 over to 2019. So I'm not real sure exactly if all that production is being pooled on other markets, but as I look at just Order 5, this is what it stands for in Order 5. So I just wanted to at least bring you up to date with what's happening with just the Virginia milk production on a order 5 basis there, okay? What is a federal milk marketing order? It's a regulatory system administered by the USDA, and it's a set of provisions under which dairy processors purchase fresh milk from dairy farmers supplying a market area. We currently have 11 federal milk market areas that encompass approximately 90% of the total U.S. milk production is produced in a federal order market area. Each market has its own regulations, provisions specific to that region. And you look at the white places on the map, those are either unregulated or regulated by a state order or a state system, maybe not an order, but a system. We look at handlers. I believe that's a common term throughout the system. And typically a handler is a processor of raw milk. It's a dairy plant, or it could be a cooperative who handles the milk. You have cooperatives or association of dairy farmers who have the full authority in the sale of milk of its members. It's handlers that are regulated by the order system and not dairy farmers. And in the dairy industry, there are two types of processing handlers. You have your fluid milk handlers and you have your manufacturing handlers. Your fluid milk is your beverage and your manufactured products. I'm going to go through now and try to give some objectives of what the federal order program does. We establish minimum prices, minimum uniform prices. We provide a tremendous amount of market information, and we ensure proper payments by the handlers. So first of all, what the orders do is they establish minimum prices paid to producers kind of through a 3-step process, if I look at it that way. We collect the dairy commodity market prices. We do that on a weekly basis, okay? Those are for your cheddar cheese, butter, non-fat dry milk, and dry whey. We determine the handler prices. The handlers must pay based on end use value of what products that they produced. And then we establish minimum producer prices through the pooling process, okay? So pooling, that's the value of all the classified value in the pool, and those help establish the minimum prices paid to producers. The orders establish monthly uniform prices paid to producers by classifying the milk by its end use. There are 4 classes of milk, class 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then these pools, the classified value of all of that value of that milk, the value shared among producers whose milk is pooled. The pooling makes producers indifferent to how their milk is used. Therefore, a producer whose milk goes into cheese or butter or powder versus a producer whose milk goes into fluid or some of your higher valued products in class 2, class 1 being the highest value, it doesn't matter. All producers, when we pool all of that, are to receive the blend price, the uniform price, in the as a beginning in their market, in the marketing area. Producers got to be qualified to be pooled, so their milk is eligible to pool. And currently, that provision is you have to be able to go. Your milk has to be delivered to a fluid bottling plant, a fluid milk plant, class 1 plant, 1 day a month. And then there's some other provisions in the market order that allow, the diversions for that milk based on a handler basis. Handlers make decisions regarding the pooling. not producers. The producers just have to have their milk qualified to be pooled, so their milk is eligible to be pooled. We regulate the fluid milk handlers. Manufacturing handlers, they can participate in the pool they have their own set of provisions in there that help supply the fluid market. This example is just how a really simple, real simple diagram of how the orders establish minimum uniform prices. There in the middle of the green, if the uniform price, the weighted average price, the blend price, equals $17 for all the milk that was classified in the pool, what you have is you have farmers selling to bottling plants, and that bottling plant's classified value is $18. Well, the uniform blend price is only $17, but we're going to make sure that all producers receive $17, not $18, as a minimum uniform price. So what happens is that bottling plant, although their value is high because it's a high class 1 plant, they're going to pay $1 into the pool and pay their producers the $17. So you have a manufacturing plant on the other side, their classified value is only $16. They don't have enough money to pay the $17 to their producers. So what happens is they draw from the pool the dollar so that they can pay the $17 to their producers. So the pooling allows producers to receive the minimum uniform price of all the milk in the pool, regardless of how it was used for. And therefore, that's why you have a minimum uniform price for a market area, for each market area. We provide, I believe Jeremy said our website has a vast amount of information on it. We provide tremendous amount of market data to whoever asks for it in a way that, that we can. We collect it, we analyze it, we publish it, all kinds of data on an individual basis, on an industry basis, on a co-op basis. A lot of it's out there. And without this information, it would be very, very, very difficult to gather it all in one place or to even assure the accuracy of that, because that is one of the major functions of the federal order system, is to provide this market information. We provide that data weekly, monthly, daily, hourly, annually. Whoever calls and needs something, if we can provide it in a way that protects the confidentiality of handlers and their operations, we'll do that. And a lot of that is pretty comprehensive as what we do with that. We have a whole economic department that handles the data requests that we get in. And we also have a committee of data. If multiple handlers or whatever submit requests for data, we get together to be sure we're all supplying the same data to those specific entities that ask for it. This is some of the information that we provide right here. We're down to the producer level, state level, retail prices. We take retail surveys for those retail prices. That's useful in knowing what big cities or rural areas that the milk is being sold in, and as to what the price of that retail price is. Milk production numbers, we have all kinds of milk production numbers. And every month when we put out a uniform price, we have a plant list that goes along with that to show the participants in the pool for that month. One of the things the federal order does ensure proper payments and timely payments. We have as a handler submit what we call a report of receipts and utilization, a handler report. They do that monthly. That's due in on the 7th of the month so that we can get out the uniform price by the 11th of the month. Then once we establish the uniform price, we have a whole auditing department that audits these reports to ensure that the payments to the producers are accurate, to be sure that what they submitted was accurate, whether they misclassified something or thought a product was 2 when it was 1, they left off something. We go in and we adjust that, and our auditing department does that. We verify. We have a laboratory that also verifies the test of milk components. We do that for all non-members, which are producers who are not members of a cooperative. We even do it for cooperatives if they can't do it, or for some reason they can't do it, or their machines are down. We'll do it for cooperatives because we have to make sure that the producers' tests are accurate on that. We in our laboratories, we send out what we call control sets to other laboratories, other handlers in the market area that they use to calibrate their machines for if they choose to make producer or to test producer milk on their own. We still send out some controls for that so they can calibrate their machines, because we're trying to make sure that all these instruments are as accurate as they can be. And we do this, I think about every 6 weeks, I believe, is what we do with this. We also ensure auditors check for producer payroll records. We want to make sure that producer was paid by the due date according to which month it was. And we do that. It's one of the functions of the audit program, is to make sure that the handlers pay who they bought their milk from and that they pay producers, so that everybody is paid by the same date on a timely basis. This chart here kind of summarizes what I've just been through, where we collect the commodity prices. That's done on a weekly basis. And then we announce the class prices. The advance price for the first 15 days milk is paid for we announce that on the 23rd of the month. On the 5th of the month, we'll announce the class prices for the month that we're going to do pool. We test the milk samples that go into for the non-members and anybody else that needs that. We'll calculate the pool and the minimum prices, get that out by the 11th of the month. Our audit department verifies those payments to producers and the handler records. So we go through this on a monthly basis. It looks to be routine. The dates and all that are, but there's always something that crops up that you have to handle. That's kind of an overview of somewhat of what the orders do. And as you know, we get a tremendous amount of questions, and I'll just go over some of these. And then at the end here, what other questions you have, we'll dive into that. So what gives the federal order program, what makes it allowed to operate? Well, back in 1937, they passed the Agricultural Marketing Agreement Act. Back in those days there, it was in turmoil about getting milk, what producers were getting paid for, how much they were getting paid. So back then, legislation established the Agricultural Marketing Agreement Act. That allows USDA to establish and maintain orderly market conditions. It establishes the classified prices based on the end use of milk, class 1, 2, 3, and 4. And allows us to establish the uniform price. Federal orders are permanent law. And USDA we're not authorized to do anything but administer that regulation. We're not really allowed to change them or modify them unless you go through the hearing process to do that. But those code of federal regulations or the code of federal regulations that's out there on the internet, those are the general and permanent rules by all, I believe, federal agencies have their section and title numbers here so that anybody can tell you what those rules and regulations might be. We get a copy of them annually. They're printed by the government accounting office, and we get those annually. They're called Title VII Code of Federal Regulations that has the market-specific order in there. We operate in Order 5 under Part 1005. Those are the rules of the Appalachian Order. And as market administrator of the Southeast market area, they operate under 1007, and Florida is 1006. All three of those Southeastern orders are under me, the market administrator. If those rules, those regulations want to be changed, needed to be changed, thought to be changed, we go through a rulemaking process. And that rulemaking process is industry driven. Those changes are proposed by the dairy industry, not USDA. We'll have a public hearing and a comment period. It is all inclusive and anybody can participate in that. What is in the hearing record is what the decisions are based solely on. And then the producers get to vote or must approve any change via the voting process. As I said, we price milk class 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are the 4 classes of milk that are used to establish the classified value of end use for all the handlers. This is a question I get quite often. Do the orders guarantee that producers are paid a price to cover their cost of production? Orders are not designed to be an income enhancement or support program. We don't insulate producers from any unfavorable supply and demand conditions. And we don't guarantee a producer a market for their milk. As I stated before, they have to qualify to be part of a market area, part of a pool. Do we determine the actual price paid to producers? We determine the minimum uniform price that the pooling handlers must pay producers and not the actual price themselves. Producers or cooperatives can negotiate for an additional value or additional premium above the uniform price. We just establish the minimum uniform price. Do cooperatives have to pay the minimum uniform price set by the orders? According to the Agricultural Marketing Agreement Act, cooperatives are allowed to reblend the net proceeds to their producers. The producers in accordance with what the producer contract might be. And therefore, they're not required to pay the minimum prices set by the federal orders. Do orders dictate where a producer sells their milk? No. Does the producer have to be located within the market area to supply that market? We don't regulate to where a producer may sell their milk or how much milk a producer can sell, nor do we tell a plant how much milk they can buy or what price they must have to sell it for to retail side. We just, under the order system, plants purchase milk from any grade A producer based on regardless of where that producer is located. Orders do not regulate the sale of milk between plants and retail outlets. However, we do keep track of where that milk, how much milk is sold as a Class 1 route sales go, where that milk is sold, what order it's sold into. We don't really break it down by a store level, but we do break it down on an order level. So we are, once the bottling plants submit those records to us, we know what order that milk was sold to. Okay, we do keep track of that one. And I believe that is in our website as far as Class 1 route sales. Okay, we do that as a service to the industry, but we don't regulate the milk sales, say, as such. There are a tremendous amount of additional resources for the orders or for information on anything that you want. The price formulas, the dairy product mandatory reporting is the law that allows us to collect from handlers what they sold or produced a product for. The rulemaking process, the act, there's just all kinds of information out there related to dairy. And a lot of that, if you go to the Appalachian Order website, you can get to a tremendous amount of information if you need to. And if not, you can certainly call me and I'll be more than happy to assist you in trying to get the information that you're asking for. And with that's all I have at this point in time as far as the presentation goes. So if there's any questions that you have, I would be, I'm gonna stop my screen here. If there's any questions that you have, I'll be more than happy to entertain those for you.
Okay, thanks so much. If you want to ask some questions, you can put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute, I think we got a small enough group that we can do that pretty easily too. I'll start off here. I got a couple of questions. So in the beginning, you said you collected dairy prices, actual market prices weekly. Is that spot prices? Is it CME prices? Where do those prices come from?
If you go out to the dairy product mandatory program, that allows I had a website up there. It gets you to AMS. Those are the survey prices for commodity prices. The order uses the barrels, the 40-pound blocks, the non-fat dry milk, butter, and dry whey prices. They go into the formula. And we'll look at those on a weekly basis, okay? And then those prices go into your Class 1 price, and they also go into all your class prices. So those are the market-driven prices that we use based on commodity prices that we use in our formulas to establish those class prices.
Does anybody else want to ask a question right now?
Errol, this is Eric Paulson with the Virginia State Dairyman. I had a quick question. I know back in the spring with Dean, I know they missed making a payment into the pool back in May. And I understand in the meantime, they've paid the independent producers, but I never heard if they finished making the payments to, I guess, the cooperatives then on the other hand. And I wasn't sure if there'd been any resolution on that or what impact that might have, what the next steps were if that hadn't been resolved yet.
The USDA attorneys and the Department of Justice attorneys are in negotiations on how that's to be paid, okay? The entire obligation to the orders has not been satisfied. The producer settlement fund in my order has not been satisfied. So I don't know when that will be settled, but the do know that the department attorneys and the U.S. and the Department of Justice attorneys are in those negotiations to see how that's going to be settled. Okay.
Is the amount, what's the obligation that's still owed in the Appalachian Order?
Pardon me?
Public. What's the amount that's owed to the federal order, the Appalachian Federal Order?
I don't really know that right off the top of my head, to tell you the truth. Okay. And I probably can't give that to you anyway, because that would be proprietary information on what they owe. Okay.
Okay.
All right, I got another question. Depooling. I've heard a lot about depooling in the last few months. Is that order by order? Is it different in each order? How is milk that's depooled? How does that affect the uniform price? How much milk can be depooled? How often does that happen? I guess, can you just explain that a little bit?
Sure. Depooling typically happens is when your class 3 price is going to be higher than your blend price, or higher than your class 1 price. Back, I don't know, I guess it was last year, we had the orders were paid. The original provision was we use the higher of the class 3 or 4 price, and then the differential was put on that. Well, Congress changed that to have an average of the class 3 or 4 price, and then you had plus 74 cents to become an average. Okay. Well, then, COVID-19 hits, of which I don't know that anybody could have predicted that. And now your class 3 price is, right now you have a lot of negative PPDs. Your class 3 price is higher. A lot of that's got to do with your butter market is pretty strong as far as your hard butter for storage. I think a lot of your inventory is pretty high when it comes to butter. So what happens, these manufacturing plants, if you remember my little simple diagram there, where they drew $1 out of the pool, okay, to be able to pay their producers the $17. Now they would have to pay into the pool, okay? And a lot of manufacturers, once they go through that analysis, don't want to pay into the pool, so they elect not to pool their milk, which is called depooling. And that's pretty common now by using, but that's why you have a lot of negative PPDs, and that's a big topic for discussion currently. In Order 5, we actually saw some, like in October, we had 0.23% of class 3 milk in the market. And for November, we had 0.60. And if I go back a year ago for November, it's like running 4%, 4.5%. And class 4 is about 8%. So typically the milk used in Order 5 is about 85% class 1 and 2. Basically 70% 1, 15% class 2. On average thereabout. So I haven't seen that depooling a lot on Order 5 because it is a fluid market. There are a tremendous amount of bottling plants. But when that class 3 price got to be, I think, $23, was $21 for October, and the uniform price is $17, those manufacturing plants would have to pay in that $4. And they choose not to pool their milk, so they don't have to pay in the $4. There's a lot of discussion about that aspect too, as to how you can prevent that, okay? I do know that Order 1 has some pretty strong provisions about that. Other orders have percentages in place that if once you depool, you can only pool so much milk back. In Order 5, we don't have that. In Order 6, we don't have that. In Order 7, we don't have that. And those reasons are because we're predominantly a Class 1 market. And that typically doesn't happen, okay? But with this COVID-19 and this uncertainty of all these prices in these bars and restaurants and schools and food service and all that totally shut down, I think we might have some negative PPDs for a while. But in Order 5, we don't have negative PPDs, okay, as such as the other orders, because we're a skim and fat market, and those other markets are component markets, okay? Did that answer your question on that one?
Yeah, clear as mud. Speaking, you said we're fat skim and others are component pricing. Could you touch on that just a little bit? I know that's probably a whole nother webinar, but just a little bit on, is it good for us? What would it make any difference if we switched? You know, I don't know, just some of the very, very basics, high level.
It depends what if you're going to produce milk and you're a high protein, high fat producer dairy farm, I would say it might benefit you because of how the protein price and your fat prices are established there. But again, not everybody's like that. You have most of your herds are Holsteins, and you have your Jerseys and Brown Swiss and others with some crossbreeds. But typically, typically it's only going to benefit some, and I won't say it's harm others, but not benefit some others. So just depends, I think, where you're at on that. Okay. Typically bottling plants, your bottling plants, your high class 1 plants, I mean, they got to standardize the fat in the whole milk at 325, I think. So, they're not paying for a whole lot of protein. And if they had to pay for protein, then, does it raise the cost to consumers? I mean, there is a tremendous amount of discussion about that. But typically in a high class 1 market, your skim and fat is how the milk is priced.
I would like to inject just so I'm clear. Although Federal Order 5, 6, and 7 is high fluid utilization, we do get touched by this depooling.
Yes.
Because our milk goes to plants and component pricing situations.
Yes.
I'm not here to be the devil's advocate, but the depooling, I can't see how we can remotely justify that when it's good for those guys to pool when component pricing's not there, class 3's not there, but they have the option to depool when it's to their advantage.
Well, that topic right there has brought out a tremendous amount of discussion about should all milk be pooled? How is that? Will that be priced? Is it fair that a manufacturer can get in and out of the pool for that reason right there? As far as when you say that we're touched by the depooling, I can see based on just numbers, yes, our class 3 was almost non-existent because of that, okay? And that classified value was not to be obtained by the producers because it wasn't in the pool, okay? And those manufacturing plants can elect to pay their membership some price other than the federal order price. Now, having said that, there is not a lot of manufacturing in order 5, 6, and 7. There's not. We divert milk to those manufacturing plants because that's how they get their milk, by going through the pool. But there is not a lot of manufacturing, but it did affect, in fact, it affected this month and last month tremendously as far as volume of milk being pooled on the market. Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit more on the voting process to amendments to federal marketing orders? I hear, the discussion of individual producer votes versus block voting, and I'm not quite sure I understand that.
Okay. Currently, a cooperative block votes, okay, for all of its membership. All right, that's called block voting. And on the independent producers, the non-members, they have a single vote for themselves per farm. Okay. There's some discussion, there's some discussion about trying to have some modified block voting to where a co-op can allow some of its members, or whoever wishes to, I guess, to be able to vote on their own and not be part of the co-op vote. And therefore, that would be called modified block voting. And there's some discussions about allowing that, but that would have to be, I'm pretty sure that's going to have to go through some congressional action in order to change that, okay? But that's what that is. It wouldn't change your independent producer voting. Block voting is your cooperative block voting for all their members, okay? And some membership might not agree with how the co-op wants to vote on a particular issue, so they want to do their own. And currently they can't do that. So that's kind of why that's in place right now, or being discussed right now. That answer your question, David?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Follow up on that a little bit. One of the things we often heard in the past about people are worried about opening up the federal orders is because it does allow both producers and processors to come to the table and present their own proposals. But at the end of the day, I guess you mentioned earlier, just the producers vote on it, right? So even if for whatever reason, producers came out with a proposal, but the processors came in with something and it kind of went sideways, at the end of the day, only the producers are the ones who have to say on the final vote.
Yes, it's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. And you have to understand too that about, I don't know exactly right off the top of my head, but you have, let me say 85% of producers in Order 5 are members of a co-op, okay? So, and you only have about 15, let's just say it's that. Let's say it's 85 and 15, and 15% are non-members. That's why the block voting, you have to have you have to be able to reach 66 2/3. And you're not going to get that on your non-members, which is why your block voting is important, okay? You have to have 66 2/3 of your producer milk be, or your votes be, you have to obtain that in order for that hearing proposal to be adopted. Okay.
Does each co-op decide on if they're block voting, or is that something the federal order basically says that co-ops are block voting?
We'll ask them if they are or not, and typically that answer is yes. Yeah, we have to know that going in.
Right. I got a question here. It was texted to me. Does Federal Order 5 take in much outside milk from outside the order?
Yeah, we have what they call transportation credits that allow that milk to be brought in from outside areas. Over the past, let me answer that. That's an interesting question. Let me answer that this way. Over the last period of 5 or 6 years, something like that, the growth of milk inside the market area continued to increase. Okay. Thus, when you do that, your outside milk coming in declines because you have more milk on the inside than you do on the outside. And by doing that, when we first had the Transportation Credit Fund, we had the transportation credit rate, I believe it was 20 cents. And I believe now it's 10 cents. Maybe it was 15 and now it's 10, which means that those funds available have declined because that milk coming in has declined. But in typical fashion, and I can only go by producers inside the market area because that's all the data that I've got. We're probably in the neighborhood of, I don't know, 60-40, 60% within, 40% outside, something like that. And now there's rules there that state, okay, and the transportation credit payment, you have to subtract 85 miles, so outside the border, before you start paying for that milk. Well, that gets you pretty far. But in today's world, with the decline of producers and all that, it makes that a little bit difficult. And maybe they have to reach out a little bit further to get that. But the money going out of the Transportation Credit Fund is not as much as it was years ago. It's declined. But yeah, the answer to your question is yes, milk comes in from the outside, yes.
I got one more follow-up on the depuoling. Is that the ability to process, or for processors to depuol, is that part of the, is that a law that they can do that? Is it part of the law from 1937 that developed the federal orders? What makes them allowed to do that? What could be changed if it needs to be changed, that they can't do that or can't do as much as that of that?
Your federal orders back in a long time ago, you had, it still is, it's a fluid milk industry. Okay, the rules and regulations are developed because of the fluid milk being the highest class value. It's consumable, it's not storable, it has to be processed, and there's cost to that. So the industry's rules were set on class 1 back in the day, 1937. And you had a huge demand for class 1 at that point in time. And then over the years, and I think most of us know that decline has declined. That fluid milk consumption has declined over those years. It's kind of picked up here a little bit because of COVID being in home, but typically it's that fluid milk consumption has declined. Well, as that declined, your class 3 currently, and 4, your 3 and 4 products, your butter and powder, and all your hard cheeses, your storable products have just seen a huge growth. And so now your orders it's still a fluid milk market, but these manufacturing plants, as the milk gets to these manufacturing plants, a lot of that milk is pooled, but they do have the choice to not participate in the pool based, and typically that choice is made on pricing. So there is a lot of discussion moving forward about, do you change the rules? Do you add manufacturing plants? What do you do to make that not happen? Because it affects producers. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about that. Yes. Where that goes, I don't know, but I will say there's a lot of discussion about that because this negative PP depooling issue has really raised a lot of eyebrows out there. Okay.
So I know here in Virginia, and you talked about it, the whole Federal Order 5 is mostly fluid milk. Most of the processing plants are fluid milk. If there was more Class 3 processing in Federal Order 5, would that help this issue of depooling? Would it stabilize the milk prices because it would spread the risk out over more products a little bit? Would there be any benefit to farmers or the industry in general?
I don't know the answer to that, to tell you the truth on that one. I don't know. Certainly any plant to be built has a positive effect on the economy and the dairy industry as a whole. Not many fluid milk plants are being built now, and certainly not many manufacturing plants, large scale manufacturing plants are being built into the Order 5, 6, or 7. And partly the reason on that is milk supply, just the demand for milk there. So I don't know. I mean, that's a very good question. But like I said, any milk plant built anywhere is good for the dairy industry. But just a lot of the milk production, it's been talked about to have a manufacturing plant in the South, a large plant, big plant, but it's never materialized yet that I know of. I don't know where those talks are that I'm aware of. I know I might not have answered you, but that is what it is, I guess.
That was my goal, to see if I could stump you once today.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Harold? We got a couple minutes left if you do.
Sounded like there was one, but I'm gonna jump in and ask this. And this is, Mr. Friedley, I know there's information available on the website and I've dug into some of it, but if you could, it may be useful for this audience just to kind of touch on trends in packaged milk as well as out of area milk, what you've seen, because you've been doing this for quite some time. So you've got some experience and some, familiarity with the data, but at one point in time, it was definitely a seasonally driven sort of process in terms of outside milk that came in to supplement and balance the market. It seems like some of that has shifted a bit, just because any organization is going to maximize its benefit, based on the rules that exist to benefit for themselves. And I think based on my sort of analysis, we see an increase in that over the years, although it's up and down some, but also the packaged milk sort of scenario. But if you could just touch on that in terms of general trends that you've seen and how that's, come into play in really Federal Order 5, but 5, 6, and or 7, Southeast. Okay,
on Order 5, on the package sales, I've seen that increase. I think that that's increasing. I believe in the Appalachian Order, we're strategically somewhat, the market area strategically, the whole area to get milk supply and be able to supply customers or consumers on a fluid milk basis, on a package basis. I see a lot of growth in milk production on dairy farms. Has got to the point that, as I said before, that I lowered my assessment rate on transportation costs, milk being brought in from the outside. But I also see a slight growth in some states more than others. Their milk production is increased. Virginia, in a lot of cases, it was growing there for a long time, and now it's backed off a little bit. So as far as the package sales go, that movement of milk, once it's packaged, it's being sold further than what it used to be. I can believe that. The growth of sales from a package standpoint into Order 7 has risen over the years, okay? Not so much going into Order 6, but from Order 5 going into Order 7, that's increased over the years. And that's a good thing for Order 5 producers and plants, but it has. Will that continue? I don't know. This whole COVID thing has just created havoc with the whole dairy industry and trying to get a grasp on, like, overnight, your restaurants just totally shut down, your schools shut down, you can't go out, you can only go to the grocery. So all that in-home stuff has an effect too. And that seems to have grown over this last year as far as your dairy sales increasing to the home. And will that convert back to your schools? And you got the USDA here with this food bank program, just bringing in stimulus money for the dairy industry to be able to buy these products, to distribute these products to these food banks. What's going to happen when that goes away? I think that's concerning. But do you have a vaccine that would help in those sales? That would, the schools get back, the restaurants get back. I think there's a whole uncertainty right now that we're going through, but it's hard to predict. I guess my point is it's hard to predict what the future may do based on all these obstacles in front of us, you know? But in general, I would say you have all these other beverages out there competing with fluid milk, but for Order 5's producers and the plants involved and the production involved and the sales involved, it's kind of held kind of steady. It's been able to maintain and grow a little bit. Okay, not much, but a little bit. I'd rather see it be steady and grow slightly than not be growing at all. Okay, so that's how I would answer your question. So I don't know. Hope I answered that for you.
Thanks.
All right, thanks so much, Harold. We're right at 2 o'clock. I know I said this was from 1 to 2. I don't know how bound by time you are, but I like to, if I say I'm going to be done by 2, I like to try and be done by 2. So be respectful of everybody's time. So I really appreciate it. This is recorded. So, and then I have up on my screen here now, you can have my contact and then the resource page for the federal order. And there is a vast amount of resources there, like he talked about today, and Harold's contact. And so go to that to find anything else. So thank you.